Cardinals Saints Thursday Night Football, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to do this hot and we are going to do this heavy. We're going to do a betting preview. We're going to take a look at the lines, the odds, talk the game, mostly from a betting standpoint. So I'm doing this 2.5 hours before kickoff because last night we had no clue who was going to be the quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. It was so bad that at one point it was leaning towards Taysom Hill. That Taysom Hill was all of a sudden going to be the quarterback on short rest. My man Ed Werder, about 2 hours ago, tweeted that Andy Dalton, my guy, will be the starting quarterback. But Jameis Winston will be dressed and will be the QB3, which I assume means that Taysom will be the QB2. So we have a lot to dissect here just from a game standpoint. And I'm going to do this on the fly of how I would break this game down betting wise. So we're going to be talking about some possible plays. We may even take some plays, but we're going to do a little bit of research here to kind of determine what we should be looking at. So the game itself, so New Orleans is plus 2.5. This morning it was plus 3, minus 115, and that was before the Dalton news. Now, I was discussing this, and I can't play the game, or I could not play the game, without knowing who the quarterback was. If I knew at the time Andy Dalton was going to be the starting quarterback, I would have taken the 3. But if it was Jameis, I would not take the 3. And if it was Taysom, I certainly wouldn't take the 3. I mean, it's short rest, and I don't think Allen and them are creative enough to utilize Taysom as a quarterback for the full game. So if we look at the injuries, all right, so the Saints are injured again, right? They're injured again like crazy. So Adebo is going to be basically your starting cornerback. He's going to be covering DeAndre Hopkins, who is back. Adebo's, he's questionable, right? So he's not even at 100%. Keith Kirkwood, questionable. Troutman is out. Lattimore is out. Pete is out. Landry is out. And Thomas is out. All right, so same situation, and Deontay Hardy is still out, obviously. Same situation as last week, where the receiving core has now turned into Marquez Callaway, Traquan, and a pseudo-injured Keith Kirkwood. I mean, we're not totally sure who is playing wide receiver. Lattimore is still out, which is not good. It wasn't good last week when you're facing Jamar Chase. It ain't good this week when you're facing DeAndre Hopkins in a team that runs a ton of plays and a ton of passing plays. Pete being out sucks. Obviously, you don't want offensive linemen out, but Dalton seems to be the quarterback. So if we go now and look at some stats, so this is the first thing that caught my eye. Okay, so if Dalton is playing, let me look at this: out, IR, Q, O. It's unbelievable. Q, O, IR. I mean, this is insane. So you're looking at like an injured Paulson Adebo and Bradley Roby is going to be your main guys for the Saints secondary. Now, the Cardinals, Hollywood Brown is on IR. He's hurt, but like I said, Hopkins is coming back, and Ertz is always there. Obviously, Kyler Murray is fine. I mean, he sucks, but he's fine. So one thing that caught my eye is Alvin Kamara. So Alvin Kamara, if we look at him and we look at these game logs, so it's important to look at game logs where you can find some consistency, right? So the consistency here is 1, Kamara's healthy, and 2, Andy Dalton's a starting quarterback. It doesn't do us any good to look at stats for players when they're affected by other players. So, for example, if Andy Dalton's a starting quarterback, you don't want statistical data from when Jameis Winston's a quarterback. If you're looking at a receiver, you want to know how he lines up with a quarterback as far as their connection. So switching things around messes that up. Kamara and Dalton is what we're looking at here. So these last 2 games, Bengals and Seattle. Another thing that's important when you're handicapping is the flow of the game. So the Seahawks, the Saints were winning, right? The Bengals, the Saints were losing. So you need to see, do teams operate differently when they're winning or when they're losing? Like, for example, the Buccaneers, when they were losing to the Chiefs, they ran the ball like 4 times. When the Buccaneers are winning a game, they run the ball a lot more. All right, so last week, Kamara gets 19 attempts rushing. The week before, he has 23 attempts rushing. Runs for 99, a 5.2 yard average, and 4.5, or 1 of the 3 for a 4.5 average. As far as receiving, both Andy Dalton again. He goes 9 targets for 6 and 6 targets for 6. This one has a 54-yard pass in there, and this one does not. So 25 yards and 91 yards. So the thing that I looked at, all right, so we go to, I never know so the player props. So I'm assuming that Andy Dalton is not 100%. Okay, he's not 100%. So if he's not 100%, I would think, and I think that the Saints have a good chance of winning this game. And the Cardinals' offense has been anemic, which means that they'll be doing a lot of 3 and outs, a lot of punting. The Saints will have the ball a lot of opportunities. All that to me seems like Alvin Kamara should be getting a lot of rush attempts. It seems like he should be getting a lot of carries. Now you may say, why don't we do rushing yards, right? If we think that Kamara's going to get the ball a lot and all this stuff, why don't we do rushing yards? Well, see, the Arizona has actually been pretty decent against the run. I believe they've only let one running back go over 60 yards. So instead of messing with the yardage, which has Kamara over 60.5 yards, I think is better to attack the 14.5 attempts. 14.5 attempts would be pretty low for Kamara, for what it looks like the Saints are trying to do. And if we include that Dalton is hurt, that's the big thing here, is that Dalton's not 100%. So if he's not 100%, they're not going to ask him to throw the ball 30-something times. Kamara, so against Carolina, where he wasn't 100%, he ran it 15 times. He was hurt against the Falcons, but his number right now is 14.5. If he ended up with 14 carries, it would be the lowest of the season, barring the game that he left early, which would be kind of weird because he's been so good lately running the football. So if we look at DVOA, we're on defense here. So the best rush defense in the NFL is the 49ers. The Cardinals are 11, so they're above average. They're above average against the run. We'll look at pass real quick. Pass DVOA. The Cardinals are down here. They're 24th. The Saints are 21st, but again, the Saints have a ton of injuries, so it's hard to quantify what the Saints are doing. Let's go ahead and look at offense just while we're here. So offensive DVOA here. Oh wait, did I mess that? There we go. Let's see some offense. Okay, so passing DVOA, best team is Buffalo. Arizona is anemic. They are 27th, pretty bad, and New Orleans is 26th. Rushing wise, the New Orleans is 2nd, so that's strong, and Arizona is 20th. So Arizona's offense is bad, right? Arizona's offense is bad. We know that. Their rush defense is above average. So the main thing I'm looking at right now, prop-wise, is Kamara's rushing attempts. Now, the next thing I would look at is we would have to try and quantify DeAndre Hopkins. So DeAndre Hopkins is really the only threat for Arizona passing the ball. Now, Arizona runs the most plays per game in the NFL. I believe they run like 72 plays on average. So if you assume that they're going to have a ton of plays, what is the majority of those plays going to be? They're a passing team. So you would assume that they're going to be a majority of passing plays. So can DeAndre Hopkins get to 6 receptions against a 3rd string, 4th string cornerback in this game? I would think yes. Now, you could say 6 receptions sounds like a lot. What would you rather do? Would you rather have 6 receptions or 62.5 yards receiving? They're pretty similar to me. I would probably lean to 6 receptions, and I say 6 and not 5.5 because 6 is a winner. 5 would be a loser. So I would probably go with 6 receptions because Kyler operates so quick and so short that all of a sudden those one yard passes, those quick screens for 1 yard, 2 yards are big wins instead of where they're missed opportunities if you have this. Another person I would look at is Zach Ertz, but 5 receptions is a lot for a tight end. So I'd probably just look at Hopkins there. Beyond that, so obviously I always talk about the field goal prop with the Saints. I always do lean over 1.5 field goals because the Saints struggle in the red zone and all of that is well documented. So I'd be looking at that as well. Another prop I like, so it's hard to find it, but so I mean, we're not going to be looking at it, but another prop I like is a no score in the first 5.5 minutes or 6.5 minutes, because you're basically begging for like one stop. So if you can find that, I would look at that as well. Something I've started to like recently is these first possession props. I'm not sure if I'll be able to find it. Oh, here we go. Arizona outcome of first drive, New Orleans outcome of first drive. A field goal attempt is 4-1. So if you bet $100, you can win $440. All they have to do is attempt a field goal. Right now, this is useful when I like to do this is if I expect a team can move the football against their opponent, but will struggle in the red zone. Both of these teams kind of fit that bill. The Saints are a little spookier because they're so hurt. So their wide receivers and all that stuff are so hurt. So then all of a sudden it's like, not that great. If the Saints had all of their receivers and were healthy, I would love the field goal attempt for the first drive here. Now, as far as the number, let's talk about the number and the total. So prop-wise, the only thing I'm really looking at is Kamara rushing attempts. Now, between me, you, and the camera, I kind of like the idea of Kamara being to score a touchdown, but at that juice, I probably won't mess with it. Another prop here that I've been liking with Dalton is Kamara's receptions. So we talked about this. He had 6 catches for 6 targets and 6 catches on 9 targets the last 2 games with Dalton. He's at 4.5 here, so he needs 5 to win. Now, I know that in other books, we're using Caesars here. In other books, I think they deal him at 3.5. So I would say shop around, always be shopping, ABS. I would not take this at 4.5. If you can find a 3.5, I would take the shit out of that. Now, Olave is back, which is going to take away some of the receptions from Kamara. So that's also something to think about, because the last game did not have Olave, and this game will have Olave. So will Dalton, Olave is going to have to get his. So if Kamara has been getting 6 receptions, is he going to lose a couple receptions to Olave? Possibly. So receptions is something else I like playing. Nothing else. I don't see too much else here. You may be able to flirt with the Kyler Murray pass attempts. We can do some quick research there just to show y'all how I would do this. So a good way to do props. So the first thing you need to do is you need to figure out, okay, how do I think the game is going to go? Like, do I think the Cardinals are going to be winning, or do I think they're going to be losing? And then you can check the situations of whatever you think is going to happen. So if you say they're going to lose the game, then you want to look at the losses. So his number is, 35.5? So you look at this one, he had 37 in a loss, 42 in a loss, 58 in a loss, 34 in a loss. All right. So then you think, okay, another thing you can think of is, I think the Cardinals will score between, 17 and 24 points. Then you go to where they did that and see if it tracks. Like if you don't think the game is going to be a shootout, I mean, granted, they haven't been scoring at all, but if the Saints aren't going to score 44 points. So then you can kind of take this one and deduce from there. But 35.5 seems kind of light here. Kyler's throwing a lot. So that's something that certainly could be possible, especially with the Saints kind of a battered secondary. So Kyler pass attempts may be another one that we mess with. Rushing wise, so if we go here, in 6 games, he has 38 attempts. Let's see if his rush attempts. Yeah, he's not even on here. So we don't have to worry about that. Okay, so past that, I don't really mess with first touchdown scorers. Those are lottery bets. Another thing is, everyone knows this, but the Cardinals have been terrible in the first quarter. So Saints money line first quarter, the under of 7.5 if you think these teams are going to struggle scoring. 7.5 is tough, and the reason I would not lean that way is because of the injuries that I talked about with the Saints. So that's the props I'm looking at. So we can look at Kyler attempts, and we can look at our Kyler passing attempts, and we can look at Kamara rushing attempts. Now, if we look at the entire game, so the entire game, 2.5 and plus 2.5 for the Saints, over and under is 43.5. Again, we missed the 3. You may be able to wait and see if you get some late steam. Another smart betting thing is if you want the Saints at 3, then there's no reason to take 2.5 now, because you'll be able to get 2.5 at kickoff, or 2. The difference between 2.5 is not that big of a deal, but the difference between 2.5 and 3 is a huge deal. So if you want to take the Saints, you're going to go ahead and wait and see if you can bleed this and hope for late money that gets you to 3. I have no interest in playing the sides here. I think the Saints are going to win, or I think the Saints have a great chance to win. I am very concerned about the injuries. I'm very concerned about backing the Saints with their 4th, 5th, and 6th receivers and their 3rd, 4th, and 5th cornerbacks on the road on a short week. Dalton's at 70% or something. So, I mean, there's a lot of variables, and I don't like making bets with a lot of variables. So I'll probably stay away from any kind of spread or any kind of action like that. The total, I'd probably lean under, because I think these two teams are kind of under teams. But again, the defense, how many plays the Cardinals run, stuff like that, kind of spooky with 43.5. So I may, you may look at the under there. The first half, 21 in the first half, probably not. No thanks for me. Field goal prop is another one that I like to look at, but Arizona does not kick field goals. Arizona has a terrible track record with field goals right now. So I wouldn't mess with that either. So right now, that's kind of how I'm looking at this game, betting wise. I'll go ahead and say, I haven't done it yet, but I'll go ahead and say that I will be taking Kamara's rushing prop, and I'll probably take something with Hopkins or with Kyler's attempts. So that's where I'm looking at with this game right here. As a fan, I'm looking for the same stuff all the time. In this game, I'm looking for Kamara to get involved. So in this game, I'm looking for Kamara to really kind of carry us here. I want to see how healthy Dalton looks, and that's really it. But I think prediction, if the Saints win tonight, I believe Cliff Kingsbury will be fired tomorrow. So something to watch out for. I'm going to go ahead and get this in the hopper and get this published so everyone can see it before the game. Good luck with your bets. Follow me on Twitter. I'll be tweeting out throughout the game. Enjoy it, and as always, who dat?